Hey guys, welcome back to another awesome Polytopia replay review. Today, I got something pretty special. So this is a game between me and Justini. It is a normal drylands map and it is an Oumaji mirror. And something to take note when playing Oumaji mirrors or tribes like Oumaji, such as Yedak, is that it is highly luck dependent. And here, both of us got a completely fair spawn. So, both of us have 3 cities. Both of us are at about 7 stars per turn. Here, Justini here is at 8 stars per turn, and I'm also at 8. So, if you don't know who Justini is, he is a very good player. He is widely known in the perfection world as being the player who nearly reached 300,000 score in perfection once. And yeah, he's very good. So this is going to be a very, very good game to show you, there's a lot of amazing tricks here. And yeah, let's just get into it. Alright, so at the end of turn 5, by the way, I'm doing it at the end of turn 5 because for the first 5 turns, nothing crazy happened. By the way, in both of our spawns, we got a ruin and 2 villages. From the ruin, I got shields, and from his ruin, he got an explorer, so he actually has 3 explorers now, and I have only got 2. And my explorers didn't go very well here, so as you can see, I have not much terrain to go with. And so here, I'm trying to get the village, so I don't hit with the rider because the rider here is acting as a meat shield and trying to block the 9 HP rider from unsieging. So now Justini would need like 3 riders to get to this rider. If I attacked with the 3 health rider, it would die, and Justini would only need 1 rider in the fog instead of 2 to be able to actually get the village. So that's why I do not kill the 3 HP rider. Indeed, Justini does have 2 riders in the fog and is able to get the village with the 3 riders and retreat. So here I am going ahead, realizing that that village cannot be gotten, so I'm just gonna guard it instead of, wasting my precious riders on it. Here is a very high level move. Usually you just go like onto the farm or the tile below, the empty tile below the village, and you would just try and go towards the village. But the difference between that and going onto the fruit is that your rider still does the initial idea of going onto the village, but what it also does is it goes ahead and acts as a protector of Jalala. If I want to go to the left village quicker, I can. Basically what it does is it becomes more adaptive. It's a very small, tiny move that I want to point out, that it's that it just differentiates the skill level. And here my opponent does the exact same thing. We're both very passive, and here I get roads pre-capture. And again, having a look at this move over here, here I moved the rider to the right twice because I don't have any vision, and realizing that leaving this rider in the city of Jalala is actually more dangerous, because here my opponent doesn't have any riders nearby that he can siege Jalala with if it's empty. But if my opponent has roads and has a few riders, they can reach Jalala and siege. So here, if I move my rider over here, I can prevent that siege by using the zone of control with the rider here in the 2 forests to not allow my opponent to bounce off these 2 riders and siege. Now what my opponent can do here is actually go ahead and kill this rider and still use, roads to bend around the 2 forests and siege, but that'll require way more effort, is what I'm trying to say here. And that's exactly why I moved the rider there, get roads pre-capture, and I can't really afford any units. Here my opponent gets fishing from the ruin. He did not get fishing. He didn't research fishing with his own stars. He's not that bad, trust me. So here my opponent is sadly 2 stars short of stars, or to get a road here and get the rider off that village. And here I get 6 cities now, and I use a technique known by quite low economy tribes that get lots of cities in the early game, maybe like Yadak, where you would connect up all of these cities to level up a level 2 city, and now I get 5 stars back. Now in this position, what I should have done is connect up all the I have enough stars for that. Hold on. Yeah, I have 7 stars here. What I should have done is connect up all the cities and get the Metropolis Monument. And I missed out on that move. If you want to get better at getting good economy and playing efficiently in terms of economy, what you do is you get like start up a creative game in single player and have like, I don't know, massive dry lands with 0 players, where you would just try to get the most stars per turn by the end of like turn 10. You'd learn quite a few tips and tricks from there. And here, instead of what I saw here is that, oh, he has a lot of riders. What I need to do is attack or defend from those riders and get a bunch of units to prepare for those riders sieging. So that's exactly what I do. I get double warrior and a rider to basically prepare for the siege. Here my opponent also misses out on the fact that he has now got 3 cities. He can connect up all those 3 cities and upgrade the level 2 city, his level 2 capital for more stars. So he instead goes for the siege, and yeah, that was a little mistake by my opponent here. So here I utilize my opponent's fact that he's gonna siege, and I basically bounce the riders off to explore. I start getting my economy up, and here I see that he has a rider here, and I realize that I can make a threat here. So okay, first of all, I siege here using a single road, and here I create a threat here, and I can use this threat to analyze what type of vision my opponent has on me and what my opponent knows. So here in this position, my opponent connects up all of the cities here and connects up this city. Right, first I upgrade this city and go for an explorer. Again, very important, Oumaji is a tribe that you need to have a lot of vision in, because they have roads, they can get very aggressive very quickly, so you need to know what your opponent can and cannot do. Because here, if my opponent didn't see this, they would be getting sieged with a pretty unpleasant surprise, because you now need 4 units to, attack, to unsiege, because I can block with that 10 HP rider. Here my opponent unsieges, upgrades a little bit more, gets the monument, and see here, here they actually, instead of using the monument on level 2 cities to get some stars, what they do first is they use the monument to get a giant, which gives them another monument, which they can now use for 5 stars. Very well played for my opponent. They put the monument over here in Limon, and here they don't upgrade the city. Notice how they don't upgrade it, mainly because they see that I can siege next turn. If they upgraded it knowing that I'm gonna siege, well, they're just gonna waste a bunch of stars. There's no difference between upgrading it now and a turn later, other than you waste a bunch of stars right now. So my opponent uses those stars to go ahead and get some units done. And here is a mistake. They train the units to protect the city. Here, this rider, by the way, is used to basically prevent the blocking. What I can do is use the rider and warrior, kill with the warrior, and then bounce my rider at the bottom of Gahamulim, and it would make him very difficult to siege. So this rider basically prevents that. But the problem with this is that it's actually an overreaction. Now, sure, I can get the city, I can siege it and get it if you don't like train a warrior here. But can I really keep it? Like, just because I attack a city and just because I get it for a turn doesn't mean that that city is permanently lost. Have a look. Can I really protect this city? Can I really? This city is overextended. It's gonna be a while until I get a giant to protect it. My opponent's giant is literally in the neighborhood. It's literally so close to Gumulim that it's just my opponent is just gonna get it back. Like, there's no worries. And while usually that's not a problem where you keep it safe, when you train a warrior here, you miss out on training a warrior in Le Mans. And if I go ahead and toggle replay fog off, you're starting to see the problem here, where I have 2 riders, I have roads, and I'm able to siege Le Mans and siege the village, and my opponent is not able to unsiege both. So because of my opponent's overreaction, they now lost the city of Le Mans, because they didn't want to give out Gahumulim for a turn. They just locked this side, made sure to keep it 100% secure, but in doing so, they just completely left this side unlocked. It's like having 2 doors that you want secured, and you have 2 locks, and putting 2 locks on one door to make sure it's 100% secured. It's the other door is also very important, and this side all of a sudden is completely weak, and it's just gonna fall. And you see, I get an explorer here. Very important that I get an explorer first. It's what I tell to quite a few beginners is always go for an explorer before you move your units. Or if you can go for an explorer, do so. First of all, get ruins, then get explorers. Do things that may change your strategy before going with the strategy that you're thinking of, because, well, the new vision may change the way you're thinking. And here, I get the vision on Le Mans, and I get the vision on this village. I see that Le Mans is empty, and I know that it has to be a rider, right? But the thing is I'm not sure whether the rider had 1 turn to move off Le Mans or 2. The difference is 1 is on the village over here, and 1 might be on the fog over there. And I wasn't sure about that. And I did not think it through enough. And like I told you, you should explore first before doing your strategy. I moved on to the village. And after like a few seconds, I just slapped myself. I mean, I just basically lost here. I just completely had a missed win here, and it was really sad. Obviously, first of all, I did some stuff, connected up the cities, and then I just realized that, yeah, here I went ahead, moved the rider here, and here, by the way, remember how a turn ago I told you that I would attack this? Well, the outcome of my opponent's response told me how much vision he has on me. Now, here, in my opponent's position, he has a lot of vision on me, right? And he doesn't need to upgrade and go for an explorer here. But a normal opponent who would have no vision on me here, and it would be like no fog, would just upgrade this city and go for an explorer. All of his other cities are upgraded, so why not upgrade this city for an explorer? Because he already has vision on me. He knows that I'm going to siege. So realizing that, I know that my opponent is very good and that they have the ability to unsiege. So I don't go for the siege, and I don't waste like 2 roads, a rider, and a warrior's worth of resources for like 4 stars, because 1 star per turn and 3 stars that my opponent loses. It's not a good trade. So it's not only about vision that you can figure out what your opponent is up to. It's also about how they react, how they play. So anyway, I get the monument, and I use the monument for over here for the stars. And notice how I use it over here, not like in Yabai or Jilala. And the reason is because I see those farms, and I want to get a giant there. at some time point in the future, and getting putting a monument in like Ibai would just make me a little bit more passive, because the giant there would take a few more turns to get there. So think a little bit about the future as well. And here I'm starting to so I see how this side is very weak. He's only got one city here and maybe two, but this side has a lot of weaknesses on it. And very importantly, I don't know it yet, but this side has a giant. And also, I mean, have a look between the two sides. This side has 2 cities and this side has 5. Which one is better protected? Exactly. So here I go ahead and just take the leap of faith. I start shifting all of my units towards the bottom side, and to create basically a pretty big attack. And I don't undervalue these sides, by the way. I keep training a rider. I trained a warrior here in case my opponent unsieges. My opponent finally upgrades, seeing how I have no attack anymore, confirming my my hypothesis that my opponent has vision on me further. And obviously the road giant. It was a little bit of an inaccuracy moving the rider down here, as now the giant has to move onto an empty tile instead of a road. So that was a little bit of an inaccuracy by my opponent. My opponent here goes ahead and moves back his rider, realizing that city is just going to get sieged and there's no way of unsieging it. So the only way he keeps it is by not getting it. Very, very smart play by my opponent. And now it's my turn, and now I start going for a massive siege. I'm starting to get all the cities. I quadruple siege. I double siege his cities. I get this. I'm sieging this city, sieging that village, and so on. Like, I am the aggressor since I'm the host here. But my opponent has just enough defenses to actually unsiege Le Mans and unsiege this city. So now they're just completely fine. It's a pretty equal position. No matter how many times I siege, no matter how many times my opponent sieges, basically the position will be completely clear. Currently, it is I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 cities versus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But it's going to be very simple for him to get this city, because again, Le Mans is such a powerful beast here. Even without needing like border growth, he can still get like 2 giants here with like a monument. So Le Mans here is just going to be doing really well, and he's going to be able to get the city very easily. I only have like 1 city next to it, and it's on his side, so it's going to be a very equal position as we start playing. And so here I get both of the cities. I get farming, by the way, pre-capturing, because I see that giant and I realize that I just need to completely eco up. Here I made a slight inaccuracy by moving the rider back and attacking with this rider. What I'm trying to do here is basically disallow the giant from getting to Jalala a turn faster with roads. That kind of fails because my opponent still is able to kill both these units. So my opponent gets farming from this rune. A little bit lucky. But oh well, they go ahead and they upgrade a few cities. Use a road. Okay. Yeah, there we go. They use a road on Jalala to road the giant to Jalala and to basically attack. They just keep upgrading, keep ecoing up. They utilize the farming technology, and they make sure that if at the very least I get it, it's going to be a little bit cut off, and also they can get a giant in Le Mans now too, with border growth easily, and just basically get the bottom city. So now, while I do have two more cities currently, I am under the attack by the giant. And I don't know if I told you this, but me and my opponent in the opening phase, we got a rune. My opponent got an explorer, and I got shield. So I utilize the beginning of my spawn to protect against the giant. Now, a normal shield in Jalala would counter a giant if it had no help, but you see all those riders, right? It's so easy to help the giant, and a giant with basically a warrior can easily kill a full health defender. So I'm in a bit of trouble here, because I realized that a simple defender can't do anything here. So first of all, what I do is, obviously, I get my own giant. And the problem with the giant is it's not going to arrive in time. I mean, my opponent is knocking on my doorstep, and it's just, I'm just going to be 2 turns too late. So here I still do some simple upgrades, and here I go for a city wall. Because, as I said, a simple defender can't do anything, but a wall defender, well, now it's much harder for my opponent to siege. And here I further concrete this defense by going ahead and taking with the warrior, because a walled defender is not immortal. Like, my opponent still has units, and I want to make sure that 100% that my opponent cannot get to Jalala. Well, at least this turn. So here I get a defender, and my opponent here gets climbing. And by the way, yes, they can still actually get to the city, which neither my opponent or me realizes. My opponent kind of stuffed up the calculations. Yes, I see here what they were supposed to do is use this warrior to attack the shield of Jalala, because this rider actually cannot reach Jalala. So yeah, a little bit unlucky for my opponent here. And here they also get a giant to not only further try and get the bottom city, but also to start an attack on Ghidorah. And now they're starting to be the aggressor, and here they realize that, oh, it's a wall, like, it's gonna be a while until that giant is gonna help, so they're gonna start going for Yidorki or Yibai. One thing you need to know about defenders is that their job isn't only to defend. When I got this defender, I didn't just have the idea of defending against the giant. I also realized that I can use it to attack. Here you'll notice that I do road my defender towards the city. There we go. And I get another defender. And the point here is that it's not only even harder to get to Jalala, it stuffs up my opponent's zone of control, and it also threatens to siege Han with the defender, and it's very hard to siege. It takes 4 units. And I get a giant in Yidorki, because again, I see the giant next to my doorstep. I have a giant at the top, I have a giant at the bottom. That giant is just not gonna do anything scary. So my opponent finally gets the bottom city of Hasion. Again, going for an explorer. Here you might be wondering, isn't that city just free? I mean, I have 6 riders, no way is that enough to, okay, 7. No way is that enough to kill the giant. And you'd be right. But the point of all those giants, the point of all those riders surrounding attacking the giant, isn't to actually attack the giant and to, kill all the riders, but it's actually to surround Yabai and to get a giant, and to giant push. And when the giant will be surrounded, it actually just dies immediately. So it gets replaced with my own giant. It's called giant voiding, or Houdini, or I don't know, giant proofing, whatever you want to call it. But when a unit can't go any spaces and it's being pushed, it just voids and dies. So that's exactly what I'm doing here. I set up a giant voiding idea. I get a giant here in response to his giant, and very brave of me to put a rider here. I further bait my opponent to get it. Now, this was the best move, but it was also kind of a blunder, because you need to understand your opponent's psychology, and me and my opponent both understand the me and my opponent are good, so they know that I'm not gonna train a rider for no reason in the city that's about to get sieged. My opponent got very suspicious, and they just decided not to siege for any cases because it seemed very suspicious, and they were completely right. Like, the giant would have died if it sieged. So yeah, it was kind of a mistake by me, but also my opponent was able to tell that no, that city is not free. When you just have a look at this position, you might say that, Justine is a little bit better, but those giants are going to take a while for me to catch up. I mean, if we have a look in like Justine's POV, we see that I just have a lot of mines here, and I have like one mountain rune and this mountain rune that's pretty easy for me to get if I get climbing. But overall, this position seems to be very equal. I might actually be a little bit more winning because I'm up a city, even though my economy is a little bit behind. So this position is quite equal. I mean, I've got 2 giants. I'm getting my 3rd here, and actually I got 3 giants getting my 4th. So my opponent is only a little bit further, but what you don't realize when looking at this position is that I'm actually not doing that well. Like, here in this position, while I can defend, these 2 giants are actually locking down the city of Gahador. And it's going to be very difficult for my giants to get to Gahador fast enough, because I only got like, okay, I'm not going to say that name, but I only got my right city to defend the city of Gahador, because these giants are using zone of control. And the problem starts to become obvious as the game progresses. My opponent actually, a turn before, made a slight inaccuracy by moving this giant down here, and what this allowed me to do was basically siege. The difference between having that giant on the mountain and off is that it takes its eye off Haon, and as I said previously, like a warrior and a giant can easily kill a full health defender, so sieging just doesn't become worth it anymore because I need to use a bunch of riders and a shield, and that's pretty expensive on my part as well, so you get a pretty fair deal. But now that the giant is off, I'm able to siege, and my opponent needs to utilize a lot more units here to go ahead and unsiege. Here, I don't realize that my opponent can actually go around the forest using roads and to get to my rider. And sieging with the 15 HP, that looks very, very not nice for me. And I started realizing the problem of having all those 3 giants going down here, and because there's zone of controlling, I cannot actually road my giants down to get to Gahador fast enough. So I start seeing the problem that my opponent is attacking me with. Here I used quite a bit of time calculating, and I realized that I can defend the city indeed. By the way, a 2 health rider, or actually I killed a rider in this position, but a 2 health rider and a full giant actually can't kill a defended shield or a defender. If the defender is protected, they actually cannot kill. It needs to be like, I don't know, 5 health. The defender needs to be at 13 health instead of 14. Otherwise the giant can't kill. Which is, I don't know if you need that information, but here I calculated that actually I'm completely fine if I do these sets of moves. So here I've just got enough units to go ahead and unsiege all 3 of the cities. This by the way city is has a threat of being giant voided. So that's why I left a few of my stars open to be able to afford the giant voiding. Now, when I said that, my opponent just doesn't, I calculated that my opponent doesn't have enough units to unsiege. Well, I miscalculated the idea of my opponent getting construction and giant pushing in Le Mans. And that's exactly what my opponent does. I made a slight inaccuracy, and now I'm just completely losing. Because here, all my opponent has to do is use the 10 health warrior that he just giant pushed and a giant to siege Gahador. And now I've completely lost the city. Because I also calculated that in this position, I would not be able to basically get the city back. I would be able to. My opponent is just one unit. Is very, very close, but they would be able to get that city, keep that city. So yeah, it's going very wrong very quickly for me. So here again, I go ahead, do a zone of control, just daring my opponent to, I don't know. Actually, they can't siege the city anymore, so I just zone of control the city. Shields are pretty good for zone of control. I unsiege the city because my opponent didn't pull any tricks out of their sleeve, so I wasn't surprised with the siege. And here I calculated that I would be able to get the city back, but only if I could veteran these swordsmen. I mean these riders. I had a bunch of 3 out of 3 kills riders that I didn't promote until later on in the game. And here I calculated that I just had enough to kill the giant. It just looks completely losing for me, and it is. But my opponent underlooked one thing. So when defending, I underlooked one thing as well. But here my opponent underlooked another trick. Well, they underlooked, I guess, the first trick. And that is the fact that this swordsman could be giant pushed. Now, giant pushing and giant voiding isn't only a measure of defense. You can also use it for offense. And here, what I could have done is I could have giant pushed the swordsman down and sieged Gahamulum. And I mean, my opponent didn't realize that. And by the way, this warrior is using zone of control. So what I had to do was I had to go ahead, use these 2 riders, kill. Actually, I had to use this rider and use this warrior and the defender to kill the warrior, and then I would use the 9 health rider and the 20 health to siege Gahamulum. And then it becomes an actually completely equal position again, and I wasn't losing. But I didn't see that. I didn't see that. All I saw, in my mind, all I saw was defend. All I had is this plan, and I pretty much was ready to give up after realizing that, my opponent can actually use all of the units to unsiege that city. And here I just missed out on the fact that I can get a city. So yeah. So basically I was ready to resign at this point, and I just waited for my opponent to calculate. I knew they would, but I just was hoping that, I don't know, they'd misclick. But they don't misclick and they unsiege. So yeah, it was a very, very wild game where a lot of tricks, a lot of various mistakes, inaccuracies, a lot of games were happening. And at the end of the day, my opponent won because I made a few more mistakes than them. And yeah, it was a very fun game. I learned a lot from it. Yeah, so see, next turn I resign after, realizing that I basically have nothing anymore. It was a very good game. I learned quite a lot after analyzing the replay, and I hope you did too. So thank you for watching. I really hope you enjoyed the video and learned quite a bit from the replay. I'll see you guys again very, very soon. See ya.